So you've climbed the retirement mountain, and through saving hard, through discipline and through sacrifice, you've finally saved enough money and you're about to plant that flag on the top of the mountain and finally retire. I read a lot of comments about the investing side of things and how easy this can be done, especially on a DIY basis. But in retirement, now comes the hard part. So why is that? Well, now you need to get back down the mountain to be able to spend your money in retirement, but without running out of money. Now remember, about 80% of mountaineering accidents happen on the way down the mountain to the base camp. So one of the questions I most often get asked is, how can I remain invested in retirement and not run the risk of running out of money? Well, today's video was inspired by Sean and his request for this sort of content. So we hope you're watching, Sean, and this video is dedicated to you. Now, I'd like to add some context to today's video by highlighting some of the statistics from the Financial Conduct Authority Retirement Live Survey, which was published in July 2023. 12.9 people in the UK had low financial resilience. And what that refers to is your ability to cope with a financial shock or an unexpected bill. 50% of adults do not have £300 to cover an emergency bill. And 7.8 million people found that paying their usual domestic bills or even meeting their credit card commitments were a heavy burden. 50% of adults in the UK have a numeracy level equal to that of an 11-year-old or even lower. And there are currently 1.4 million people in the UK aged over 85, and this number is projected to double in the next 20 years. So welcome back to the channel, and if this is your first time, a very warm welcome to the Economies channel, where together we're going to be learning the language of money and wealth. We're also dedicated to mastering money and making financial wisdom available to all. Now before we dive in, I'm going to pop up the usual disclaimer just here to show that this video is for education and entertainment purposes only and shouldn't be misconstrued or misunderstood as giving financial advice. Hi, my name is Simon and I'm a chartered financial planner here in the UK. Now today we're going to be covering the incredibly important but complex topic of retirement income, and we're going to be focusing on 4 main strategies to keep you invested. Specifically, we're going to be covering several key concepts, including the sequence of return risk, income drawdown, a sustainable withdrawal rate, investing for natural income, or investing using the bucketing approach. We're also going to be touching on the role of behavioural finance and the importance of controlling your emotions in retirement. Now, I could record a video on each of these separate topics in their own right. So if you'd like me to do that, just let me know in the comments below. I would love to put that together for you. So by the end of this video, you're going to have a clearer understanding of what options are open to you, how they work, some of the advantages and some of the disadvantages, of course, and some of the key risks that you need to consider. This is going to allow you to manage your retirement more effectively and reduce the risk of running out of money. Now, we all know that the pace of change is absolutely relentless, and there aren't many bigger changes or challenges from stopping work and retiring in full. And here are some wonderful images to illustrate that for you. Now, the first rather grainy image is from the New York Easter Parade in 1900. And you can see that everyone who is participating has got a horse-drawn carriage, except there is just one motor car, and I've highlighted that with the red circle. Now the next image is of the same New York Easter Parade, but this time it's been taken in 1913, and this is an amazing quality photograph. Now, such was the rate of change that everyone now in the photograph has got motor cars apart from just one horse-drawn carriage, which I've highlighted. So this image was taken with the crowd waiting to meet Pope Benedict XVI in 2005. And if you look carefully, you can see someone in the bottom right-hand side of the photograph with a Motorola flip phone taking photographs. Do you remember those? Now, what a difference this next image is. This was taken with the crowd were waiting to meet Pope Francis in 2013. Now there is now a sea of mobile phones, but if you look carefully, someone's also now recording the event on their iPad. So that photo captures change, within change. Now let's look at one of the biggest challenges in retirement, and that is the sequence of return risk. Now this refers to the risk that the order in which you receive returns on your investments will affect the overall value of your portfolio. This is particularly important in retirement because you're going to be drawing your savings monthly from your pension fund. Now, poor investment returns, especially in the early years, can significantly impact your ability to sustain your withdrawals over the long term. If you have two portfolios with the same level of returns but in a different order, then the average return is exactly the same. However, when you start taking withdrawals, the importance of the sequence of the returns is startling. Now here is a chart on screen to help demonstrate this idea. As you can see, we've got portfolio A and we've got portfolio B. We've got a list of years, the first 5 years, and the sequence of returns. So with portfolio A, the first few years show a positive return of 15%, 13%, 11%, and then in year 4 we've got a minus 5%, and in year 5 we have a minus 7%. In portfolio B, we've got the same range of returns but in a different order. So with portfolio B, the first 2 years are minus 7% and minus 5%. In year 3 it's 11%, year 4 it's 13%, and in year 5 it's plus 15%. So what that means is at the end of the 5-year period for both portfolio A and for portfolio B, the value of the fund is 127,440. However, if you now start taking withdrawals of 6% or £6,000 a year, and then we repeat the same sequence of returns for 30 years, then the massive difference is that in portfolio B, the fund would actually be exhausted in year 27, whereas in portfolio A, which enjoyed positive returns in the first 3 years, the value of the fund after year 30 is 76,375. And that highlights the difference of having positive returns in the early years and how important that is to impact on your overall pension in retirement. So it can be argued that the order of the returns is more important than the level of the returns. Now, you know we love a quote on this channel, and this is going to be from the late great Eric Morecambe, and this may help explain this concept a little bit better. He said, "I'm playing all the right notes but not necessarily in the right order." And that is a problem that needs to be solved. So how do we go about solving it, and what options should you be looking at? I'm going to put this chart on screen and walk you through this example. So let's assume you've got a pension fund of £100,000, and then you take the maximum tax-free cash of 25% available to you, and that's going to leave then £75,000 in the pension fund. And let's assume you wanted to withdraw 5% a year, or £3,750 per year. And you did that for 3 years, and then in the 3rd year, the fund fell by 20% in value. What that means is you would then now have a fund value of around £45,000. And that's a big difference from a £75,000 starting point. So if you wanted to maintain a withdrawal of £3,750 each year, you're now not withdrawing 5% from the fund. In fact, you're withdrawing 8.33% from the fund, and clearly that's not going to be sustainable for the long term. Now, most of us are going to need to withdraw a consistent level of income from the pension, and this can be heavily impacted by large falls in value. This means that our choices are going to be either to withdraw less money or run the risk of the money running out a lot earlier than expected. So when you're saving for retirement, you're more than likely to have a fixed level of risk, but your returns are going to vary each year. Some years you're going to have good years, and some years are going to be bad years. However, when you're in retirement and spending your money, you may need to withdraw a fixed level of income, and to achieve that you may have to be willing to accept a variable level of risk. Let's say, for example, you want to withdraw 5% of your fund every year. Now sometimes that's going to be easy to achieve with lower risk investments. However, sometimes to achieve that you may need to look at higher risk investments, and clearly that's not going to be suitable for everyone. So here's a very quick reminder for you on screen. You have a fixed risk, and that will deliver variable returns. If you need a fixed income, you're going to need to accept a variable risk. Now, Nobel Prize winner William Sharpe, he called retirement income planning the single nastiest, hardest problem in finance. There is no such thing as a safe withdrawal rate, but instead we call it a sustainable withdrawal rate. Now, we mentioned Bill Bengen before, who was an aeronautical engineer who established an idea about withdrawals in 1994. On the face of it, that was fairly simple. He wanted to consider how your withdrawal rate would have fared in good times and in bad times under various market conditions. Then he chose a more conservative approach that would have been successful in most market situations over a 30-year period covering the last 100 years. Now, this would have included, of course, the Great Depression, where markets fell 61%, and that was in 1929, or the oil crisis in 1974, where inflation jumped to 22%. So his idea was to start with an initial 4% withdrawal rate from the fund and increase this by the level of inflation regardless of the fund value at the time. He used a 50% equity and 50% bond portfolio using US data. Now, if we use UK data, this withdrawal rate may be closer to 3.25% or even lower. I've actually seen data showing a sustainable withdrawal rate of just 2.6% because in the UK we've had higher levels of inflation and lower levels of overall investment growth. So you could make the argument that there is a greater chance of success in retirement if you take a higher level of risk with your investments and keep a higher percentage in equities, but that may not be suitable for many people. But if you do prefer a higher risk approach, make sure you're in a globally diversified fund and watch out for the fees and the charges. So what about investing for natural income instead? Now, you can either invest directly into high yielding or high dividend paying stocks, but you may prefer to be more diversified into a fund where the risk is lowered and the portfolio is not quite as concentrated. Now, these companies tend to be a lot more stable, but with less opportunity for long-term capital growth. And again, that may not suit all people. Now, these funds tend to pay out any income generated from interest, from dividends, from rental properties, and all without selling the underlying investment. Now, these funds can provide a more stable income, and the aim is to preserve your capital by just using the natural income that is generated. However, this income can also be variable, and that may cause an income shortfall in retirement to meet your regular bills, so please be very careful. So if you're finding some value in this video about how to stay invested and lower the risk of running out of money in retirement, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Each video does take about 10 to 12 hours, so that's a big thank you to all the people behind the scenes who are making this happen. So another option to consider is the investment bucketing or the silo approach. Now, this is where you split your investment portfolio into separate buckets or silos, and this could be broken down as follows. You could have a cash facility with, say, 30 months worth of regular expenditure inside. And this allows you to remain invested and not to be overly concerned by short-term falls in the stock market or even recessions. Now, the average recession can last between 12 and 15 months, so having a large cash buffer is going to allow the stock market to recover over time. You could consider splitting your portfolio into 3 buckets, for example. You could have a defensive bucket, you could have a growth bucket, or even a discretionary or legacy bucket, and that would be then leaving an amount of money to your family on death. So that breakdown of the portfolio might look a little like the chart I'm going to put on the screen right now for you. So once you've allocated sufficient cash into your reserve for your regular outgoings, You could then perhaps split the buckets as follows. You could perhaps have 30% in the defensive portfolio, 60% in the growth focused portfolio, and maybe 10% in an even higher risk portfolio, because that's what's going to be left to your family and you've got no intention to spend that in the short term. Now, this offers a lot of psychological comfort, especially when markets can be volatile, as you're going to have enough cash for 30 months of expenditure and you can focus on family and living your life rather than being distracted by the noise of the stock market. One of the downsides of this, of course, is that you're going to have to rebalance your portfolio every 2 or 3 years or as required. Now, as with all these videos that we've discussed so far in this video, there's always going to be risks to consider, such as the risk of outliving your savings, the risk of poor investment performance, the risk of high inflation eroding your income. So in conclusion, navigating retirement income involves striking a balance between risk and reward and understanding the risk of poor investment returns, especially in the early years, and how that can negatively impact your plan. You need to establish a sustainable withdrawal rate. Now, Bill Bengen provided a possible starting point of 4%, but you may be more comfortable investing for income or managing your flexible drawdown or even using the investment bucketing approach. Now remember, fixed term annuities offer secure and guaranteed income for a short term, let's say for 5 years, for example, and that's going to provide peace of mind with no investment risk at all. So by carefully planning your income approach, you can have a fulfilling retirement and lower the risk of running out of money in retirement. So thank you for watching the video to the very end. Please hit the like button, the notification bell, and subscribe to the channel so you can get this financial wisdom as far and as wide as possible. And finally, this is your channel and this is your voice. So if you've had a positive experience about planning your retirement income or even a negative experience, please let us know in the comments and we can all learn together. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all again next week.